Hey y'all, so in this video we are looking at support and resistance, and again I say so often that I look at support and resistance on a much smaller scale because when I'm in the trade I want to kind of have an idea of where my trouble places are. But first let me give my disclaimer, y'all. I am not a financial advisor. I just enjoy teaching people how to build generational wealth, and yes, the stock market is just one of those avenues. So this video is for educational purposes only. With that being said, if you could please like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that, because we learn and we grow together. So that being said, now let's get started. Okay, we are looking at Tesla. And I like to look at, when I do a lot of my charting, I look at the 30-minute chart. I like to look at the daily chart, the weekly chart. I look at all of those, but for some reason, I get a lot of my information from the daily chart. Why? Because if I go to the 1 hour, I can get the same. If I go to the 4 hour, I can still get the same. So I like to, if I'm getting ready to, for the day, I like to go to the 30-minute chart, and especially if it's pre-market. I want to see what's going on, right? So looking at Tesla, we know Tesla has come off of a high. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that we can see why I need to go in and mark some more levels, right? So Tesla came off, we were at this 298 level. Let's say, yes, around 297.59 is where price was. So I need to remember this area. Why? Because even though we broke through, to make this high of 298.13, look where price still, the body of the candle is here, the body of the candle is here, the body of the candle is here. So something stopped Tesla in this area. Something brought us back to this zone. So I need to remember this for future references, because guess what? Tesla is probably going to go back to that area again. Now, we're going to try to work our way back to the downside. Now, seems like we came up, got rejected, came all the way down here. So there's another level here that somehow price kept us at that place. Should I mark that? Let's see. Let's hold off on that for right now, because it seems like I'm going to go ahead and mark it. Only because, right? So right now, price we stopped in this area before, so I need to remember that? Possibly. If it gets too much, I'll take it off, but as of now we're going to add it, right? So moving our way back to the downside. So Tesla come down, and I had a zone marked, and support it had a gap that need to be filled. Let's say that first. So I had marked this area. The white lines on my charts are gap fill areas, 289.73. So this 289.73 I had marked, and down to the 280.84 I had marked as a gap. That means Tesla need to come back at some point and fill this zone here. Well, guess what? There was I think there was a gap within a gap, or somehow I had three lines. That means somewhere between this level of 289.73 down to this 274.62, Tesla, there's a gap that need to be filled. I got that information from the daily chart, right? So again, when I go back to look at my chart, because there was a gap from here to here, I need to see that something stopped us here. So that would be on really, really close. So I wouldn't mark that level because it's really close. Around the 286.01, I have the 286.50. So I'm not quite sure I would mark that level because, I see it's really close, right? So what's interesting is I have a 286.50 down to 280.84. I don't have anything marked that could help me to, if I was to get in a trade and we were to, where are my trouble places? That's a big gap. 286 to 280. That's almost a $5 gap, $5 and something, gap. So I need to go and see what stopped me in this area, because something did stop me, right? What will be interesting is these two candles here. A price was here, a price was here, a price was here, a price was here, here, and here. For some reason, this 283.11 is a number that I need to remember. Why? Because price has been here a lot of times. So if it's been there before, again, it's probably going to go back to that place again, right? So now we have a zone here. Tesla has been trading in this zone here at the 283.11 and down to the 280.84. We knew that 280.84 from a previous gap fill area, and as you can see, that's where price is. That's where my 20 EMA is as of now. My 5 EMA is in between this zone, and we have this. So if I was looking at support and resistance on a smaller scale at this point, my support will be this 280.84. My resistance would be the 280. 283.11. We just marked that. Why? Because that is the zone that we are trading in as of right now. So if Tesla should break this 283.11 area, we could possibly, again, I will use my moving average here, 283.80 could be a trouble place for us. And if we should break that level, just look at this 285.10. That could be a trouble place for us. And, you know, so we use those little small elements to help us with resistance or support, right? So if it's going to the upside, we know that that's resistance. To the downside, we know that that's our support, right? So again, this is our zone. We have been in this zone here. Tesla is still trying, you know, having issues, even though it broke through this area here. Look where the body of the candle, and again, this candle has not closed because we are looking at the 30-minute chart, so we have a little bit more time, but you see price is still in this area here. So if I were to trade Tesla, I wouldn't trade it anywhere in this zone. Why? Because I know this is a trouble place, a resistance area. This is a resistance area. And if I were to enter the trade, if it broke through just slightly, let's say it come back and retest this 283.41 area, I need to be careful because I know I'm going to have trouble, possibly have trouble at the 283.80. So from that 53 to the 80 is not really far. That's, in my opinion, it wouldn't be a decent scalp for me. So I would be careful not to enter the trade right here because I know I could possibly have trouble. Now, breaking through this level of 283.80, I know, again, if I was to enter this trade, I'm going to have trouble right here. So I've got to be careful, you know, making sure I don't enter the trade at the wrong time. And by doing so, we look at our support and resistance. Again, I would use it on a much smaller scale because, in my opinion, you know, I want to know where I'm going to have trouble. I'm going to go and remove this line because it just doesn't fit for me. Okay, so I'm just going to move it for now. Okay, so continuing to look at Tesla, I have another line that I need to definitely mark. Why? Because price kept us at that area for a reason, right? So pre-market, it seems like Tesla came down to this 275.60 area. I have the 274.62. Keep in mind, if I see it, somebody else see it. So quite naturally, they're not wanting to continue to, you know, sometimes they'll try to give us that mind thing of thinking it's going to do something and then it reverse and do the opposite. This will definitely be one of those cases, but for some reason Tesla's price stayed here for a reason. So I need to remember this area, and I'm going to say right here, if I mark this area, look where this candle touched this line, this body touched this line, this almost touched this line. So price was at this 277.40. It stopped us in this area for a reason. I need to remember that place. So if by chance we lose this support here at 280.84, we could very well come down to 277.40. Why? Because price has held us up at this place before. Now, if I wanted to get on a more smaller scale, guess what? Price was here in this area. So between this 280.84 area down to this level we just marked 277.44, we have a place that could stop us out at the 279.03. Why? Because that's where price has been before. So we have to be mindful of it, you know. So coming back to the downside, if we break this 280.84, I would look at the 279.03 as a support place. If we should break that level, then I would look at the 277.40 as a support level. If we should break that level, guess what? Price came back down to this level right here at the 276.33. We stopped something stopped us in this area, right? What stopped us? So we've got to be mindful of that, because coming back to the downside, we can find support here, we can find support here, we can find support here. And if we should break that level, then we could possibly come back to this 274.62. Let's say that we could possibly come back and test that if we break the 276.33. So I always try to go back and see where price has been gathered, where price stayed for a while, you know, a few candles, or what caused that gathering spot, or most people would say the consolidation. I call it the gathering spot. Why? Because that is the place that we are gathered together here. So I have to be mindful of that. Now, it looks as if now we're finding support at this area 280.84. I would definitely watch that, and keep in mind, you know, Tesla could very well, it does what it does, and it does move interesting. Let me say that it normally exceeds its ATR. So if ever you trade Tesla, just remember that average true range of the day, Tesla normally exceeds that amount. So it looks like we are still having trouble at this 280.84 as a support area for us. Now, can we go back, bounce from this? Yes, we have. We did it here. We came down to this area, bounced, and we moved up. Right? So we got rejected only to come back down. So can we be, we're kind of like back in the same area. It looks like it made a smaller low, even though it didn't meet exactly where that one was. It looks like we came down just a little bit more. But what's interesting is there were some buyers right there willing to take Tesla back to the upside, right? So we definitely need to watch this area of 280.84 because we can bounce here and come back to our next level, which is 283.11. And if we should bounce there, we can have that, we can have that. And there's another line here that we marked previously, and guess what? Price was at this area. I didn't have to mark that. I already had it marked on my charts because I like to grade those lines out. Now, let's go back to the 289.73 area because there is a kind of like of a micro level here. There's a body here, and there's some body over. There's some, some over here. So if I was to mark this level here, price was here, kinda here, almost broke through just a little bit, but price was here. So I have at least 3 candles that are kind of like 4 or 5 if we want to use those. It's slightly up, but it's still in that area, in that zone. We may not get it right exactly. However, I know going back to the upside, if by chance we break this level here, we could possibly have trouble again in this area. And if we break that, it's not far away that we could possibly have trouble again because price stopped us out at that area. That's something to be mindful of. So those are areas that I need to remember. Why? Because we've been there before. That's really, really important, especially with trading, knowing where your support is or where your trouble places are, right? Again, I like to look at the smaller scale sometimes because it kind of helps me know if I'm in a trade, I need to get out or I need to watch this area. We know that we could possibly have trouble. This is the area that my alert is on in my mind to where, okay, I need to get out at this place. But what's interesting is, as you can see, Tesla came down. It looks like price came all the way back to that same place. That 280.84 is our support place. So we need to be careful in that area. If you're trading, if you would be, in the trade right now, we would need to watch this area. So that's interesting. I just noticed some places today that Tesla, just watching it come down off of a high, and it's coming down to the areas that we possibly knew we could have trouble. This is one of those areas here, and coming down, we just marked this level. Why? Because price has been in this area here. We came down to a level of a gap fill area, and price was just interesting in this place because we had a strong move down, let's say that, only to move back up, which is interesting with Tesla, right? So we came off of this 289.73 only to come back to the 286.50 as a support area. As you can see, those 2 candles showed us here. So we definitely, I would say, going back to the upside, we're going to come back and revisit that place. Now, is there a mark, from the 286.50 down to the 283.50? It could very well be, depending on how you want to chart your, because there isn't a level here that we could very well mark, but I'm not going to mark that one because I still have, and just keep in mind that these pink lines I use as an ATR trailing stop, they're not going to be there when a few days from now, they're not going to be at those locations, right? So those candles kind of like gives us an indication that we can have trouble at that. So that's why it's important that we move to the left. They always say when in doubt, zoom out. So yeah, listen, this is what I see when I look at the market. There's so many ways to chart. There's so many different ways to, figure out a plan that works best for you. Is what's, challenging sometimes because we can get so much information, but support and resistance, if we take away all of these lines, it's simple, support and resistance. Where is price? Where was the price? Where, what stopped us? That's the first question. What stopped us in this area? Something stopped us. I need to remember that place of what stopped Tesla at that place, or whatever stock that you're trading or ticker that you're trading. So that's something to be mindful of. Again, this is what I see when I look at the market. Again, there's so many different ways to trade the market. What's challenging is finding what strategy works best for you and having the discipline to execute your plan. When I look at support and resistance, I look on a much smaller scale because it helps me. If that does not help you, figure out the plan that works best for you. With your charting, figure out, like how I go in and gray out my areas. Figure out what works best for you. I can't have a lot of colors, or because my eye would just bounce all over the place. I know if I have these blue lines, they're fresh lines. If they're gray, I know that they've been there before. That works best for me. me. Many people will look at my charts and say, well, I can't, well, it's best, find what works best for you. Again, y'all, so I hope that everyone have a very, very productive day. Thank you so much for watching. If you could please like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that, because we learn and we grow together. So until next time, be blessed as well as a blessing unto others.